Hi, everybody. My name is Toni Marcolini. Welcome to the podcast. It may interest you to know. I'm always excited to have authors, especially authors I haven't actually had an opportunity to meet before on the podcast. And I have just such a person today who I can't wait to start talking to. So, everybody, help me welcome Amelia Diane Combs.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. May I call you Amelia? Let me
Yeah,
start.
totally. Yeah. Thanks.
I read your book. Absolutely delicious, right? Just delicious.
Thank you.
I don't know how to better say it. I I'm a literary fiction
Mhm.
snob, okay?
Yeah,
And I admit that, wholeheartedly, whatever that says about me. I read almost everything besides science fiction.
yeah,
Uh, and I love a good mystery, right? I will read suspense. I read historical fiction. I read history, biographies. I really do read everything. Uh, and literary fiction is just my jam, right? That's what I really love. And I've said this before in the few instances I've seen it, when I get like mystery suspense and then you tie it up in like a literary fiction bow, that's just the absolute touchdown. That's the Super Bowl for me. So you definitely hit that.
thank you.
This is literary fiction just as much as it is anything else, right? And what I love about literary fiction is what you capture more than anything. It's just messy, right? It's messy and delicious,
So messy. Yes.
right, you get right into the lives. I don't want to give away spoilers,
Yeah, yeah.
but I will say this is about three sisters, spaced out a little bit in age. The younger one is spaced out a little bit further
Yeah.
down than the two older ones, who aren't close, right? Going
Yeah.
into this saga, they're not particularly close, and they carry with them the usual, trauma and bitterness and family
Yeah.
garbage that comes with, growing up with people in the house that you
Yeah.
don't get along with. And now they go for their parents' anniversary on this like family reunion camping trip, and it's just downhill from there.
Yeah.
Right? Chaos ensues. It winds up being a mystery suspense novel in what happens. Um, But it's just magnificent, right? How these three people who didn't think anything of each other have to come to rely and depend upon each other
Yeah.
to get through this. And stuff comes out and arguments happen and you're on the edge of your seat, the whole time. And every time you think you've figured it out, there's something else
Something
that
else.
layers down, with this family. Just perfect, delicious, 2, 3, 4 A pluses.
Thank you so much. That's so nice. It's always nice to hear. But yeah, it was a really fun book to write.
Is this something you planned out in advance?
Like the overall plot or like
Like
the
the
kind
overall plot. I was just
um,
curious because I'm thinking, like, do
no,
you know how it ends
no,
before you're writing it, or did the
really
sisters tell
no.
you how it went?
Usually no, but the way this book kind of like came into being was a bit unusual. It was my like adult debut. I've written four books for young adults before. So going into like this pivot into a different age category, I was pretty intentional. I had like a lot of conversations with my agent about like, okay, what should I do? Because like I had been writing contemporary like romances before for teens, so this was a big pivot and I love mysteries and true crime. So that was kind of like the way we were leaning. So I very intentionally tried to go in with like a good hook and a mystery. And I initially was going to have it be about like friends, which is so funny. And my agent was like, no, like it should be about sisters. You have sisters, I have sisters. Like that is way more interesting. And I was like, oh, you're totally right. Because people will always protect family. You're not always going to protect like your best friend, even if they are, like your closest person. Sisters are different. Sisters have a lot of baked in drama.
Yeah.
So that was like a really good tip. But yeah, I went into it with the actual like killers being slightly different. And then when I was revising with my editor, once the book got picked up, we kind of were playing around with a few different ideas. And I was actually in the middle of revising it over the holidays last year. And I was like, I have an idea. And I was like, what if we do like this instead? Can we do this? Is this too wacky? And they were just like, no, this is great. And so it was kind of like, as I got into the book and revising it and really like piecing it apart, I saw more opportunities for more little twists and ways to make it like even more absurd and like more fun and more twisty. So the beginning, like, was a very different book from like, draft one, draft zero to where it is now. It was really fun. I like that. I like knowing like a little bit of where I'm going before I start writing, but I get really bored if I have like everything plotted out because like there's this bit of like discovery that goes into figuring out the book as I'm working on it and I'm writing that I find very like fun. Like you get really into it, get really into the characters, I get really in my head about it. I think about it a lot. And usually when I'm in that space working on the book, I'm like, oh, well, this is a good idea. Or like they could do this. Like it's hard for me to get to that point before I've even started a book. So I like to have like loose outline, like bare bones. I kind of know where I'm going. And then I have faith in myself, generally speaking, that I'll figure out like a good way to the ending when I get there.
Yeah, I obviously I hadn't read anything of yours ahead of time, right? You're definitely were catering to not my age group
Yeah. Fair.
beforehand. So I didn't know what to expect
Mhm.
getting into the book. So I was really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And I was wondering as I was reading it, like, is this thought out, or is this, a little bit fly by the seat of your pants? And I say that I've interviewed lots of different authors, and some
Yeah.
tell me I need to plot the whole thing out. That's the only way I can do it. I
Yeah.
have every chapter. And
Mhm.
then I've had a few authors who I really respect say to me, the characters tell me, right? I
Yeah.
sit behind the computer and I start going, and I couldn't even imagine knowing in advance because they
Yeah.
tell me what they want to
Mhm.
do next, and that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And it had that vibe, right? This
Yeah.
has that
Yeah.
vibe, like the sisters are driving this
Yeah.
story.
They're figuring it out. And that's truly how I love to write. I've tried to do the really like intricate plotted, like laying it all out. And I've done this multiple times over the years, and I always end up getting like really weird writer's block when I do that because I get so fixated on, okay, this is the thing that's supposed to happen. And as I'm writing and I'm knowing the characters more and knowing the story, I'm like, that's not the best thing for like to happen though. So I can't go do that because that's not the perfect solution anymore. And so I need that like flexibility to be like, okay, now we're gonna pivot. So people who can like editors, my agent who can roll with me on that are like fantastic because I think sometimes people are like, let's see your outline. Let's see every single thing. Like this was such a new like venture for me going into like mystery. And when I was working on the sequel, I was trying to like outline some stuff with my editor. She wanted like a really like flushed out like outline. And I gave her this like 10-page brainstorming document of like all the different things that could happen. And she was just like, you need to know who the killer is, Amelia. I was like, okay, fair enough, fair enough. So I like went back and we got there, but it was sort of funny because I do kind of let the characters take over, or like I kind of transition to being really in the story as I'm working on it. And I find that's when I get my best ideas. And if I get too locked into this is how I told my editor this beat was going to play out, like I kind of panic a little bit. I think I feel confined. Um, it's taken me a while to realize that. I used to just be like, oh, there's something wrong with me or like the drafting, but it's usually I've made a wrong decision.
Well, people create, I think, a- as different, everybody kind of creates
Yeah.
differently as to how they get to their best version of what they want to create. And on the flip side of that, there's a lot of similarities,
Mhm.
right? In that some people need to create spontaneously.
Yeah.
And I can see that, right? The characters start to reveal themselves to
Mhm.
you. And that's I said the feel that your book has, the Drop Dead Sisters, in case I didn't say the title. Um, Literally, the sisters are driving the story, and you will recognize, the dynamics, right?
Yeah.
If you have any family
Ridiculous.
members, you'll
Yeah,
sort of
right.
recognize the dynamics to this story. It's so layered down with multiple things that are going on. And I agree with you. You did put enough sort of that can't be, like there's a touch of absurdity,
Yeah. Which I
right?
love. Like I love absurdity.
Which sort of made it, even funnier, right?
Mhm.
So like you wouldn't think so because it's a serious topic, but I
Yeah.
mean, you made it a little funny because you added some absurdity to
Yeah.
some of the stuff that was happening, and at the same time so true to life, right? Which
Mhm.
I don't think is a dynamic that's easily
Yeah.
captured in literature.
Yeah.
So I liked that a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that was I like not same level at all, but I love like Fargo and like the Fargo series as well as the movie and just like kind of the absurd things that keep happening. And you just see like the bad decisions that characters make. And but you get why they're doing it. And you're like, but this is so crazy. This is so absurd. But it's believable. And then it just like leads to this other mess. And like that's what I really love. And I love writing because I want, I want it to be believable that you'd be like, yeah, I get why this person is making this decision. It's the worst decision ever. Like you should not do this, but like you understand why. And then you get to see like the dominoes that fall and the mess that comes from this like split second decision that a character makes. And that's always so much fun to write and read.
Yeah. I'll agree with that because that's what I found. I was going through, right? And I'm thinking with most of the decisions they make, I'm going, no,
You know, right? You're
no.
like, that bad.
That's just wrong, ladies. Like that's just no, you got no place good to go with that, right? And they
Like
didn't, right?
Kirby Dragons, like such a bad idea, like for real. And
And it
it's
winds up
fun.
being, just
Yeah,
it gets worse and worse
it
and
gets worse
worse,
and worse. Yeah.
but such a great story, such an interesting story that I really found myself very enthralled with your story from beginning to end. It's an easy read, it's a fast read, for certain.
Yeah.
And these are characters you love. I mean, I'm thinking, will there be a sequel? Will we see our ladies again?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much I can talk about the sequel, but it will come out this October, which is the first time I've said that because now it's 2025. I've always been like next year. So this October, this year. But yeah, there is a sequel called Sisters Before Misters. Um, and it's set with the same cast of characters a year later in Seattle, which is where I live. So that was really fun. And my editor lives in Seattle too. So like we were having so much fun with that. But yeah, like one of the characters mysteriously kind of like violently disappears and they have to figure out what happened to them because
Oh.
things aren't looking good for one of the other sisters, So it was that was maybe the hardest book I've ever written. Sequels are
Being
hard.
being
Sequels,
true to the characters and
yeah.
then just
Yeah.
resetting them in a new
Resetting them, having
location.
them have their own arcs, like the new location, making sure just like all those small little through lines carry. Like I'd never done that before. Like when I've worked on my other previous books, I have kind of like a set it and forget it mentality. I kind of joke when I send in a draft, my brain kind of just shuts it off, like where I don't think about it anymore because I have quite an anxious, like obsessive personality. So once it's out of my hands, I'm like, you're gone. You are no longer a part of my brain. See you later. So if I ever get a book back to like revise, I have to reread it and be like, oh yeah, so when it's coming back to like actually going back into that world with those characters, it was really weird because I was like, what if I mess up? Like I actually forgot someone's last name in the book, like a side character, and had the wrong last name in the sequel until I went back and I was like, there's too many details for me to keep track. So I have like all these documents, but it's things like that where just making sure they're true that when you read them, you're like, oh, this is the same character, but this is the character with growth. Or this is the character now in this new situation because you don't want it to be too similar to the first book. You want the tone to carry through. And that's what I struggled with the most was like my first attempt at it. Like the tone wasn't right. It wasn't very funny. It was too dark. Like, and having to revamp that, be like, okay, dark, but we need to have the humor. We need to have the sisters. We need to have those like elements playing together. And that was just quite difficult. Like it was, I mean, I think the book is more or less in copy edits now. I haven't heard otherwise. So I think like all the plot stuff is done. But that was it was really hard. Like I was shocked at like, the back and forth I went with myself of trying to get this right and how difficult I found it. Everyone's like, "Oh, second books are hard," but I was like, "But this is like my sixth book or my seventh book. It shouldn't be hard."
Well, I guess in this new field, right?
Yeah,
Catering to
no, I
this
mean it's
new
true.
audience,
Yeah.
which can
And
be probably slightly more demanding, right?
and yeah, and it was a tighter timeline as well of like having a sequel and having it come out the following year. I was also just it was really quick. The book initially Drop Dead Sisters had a pretty quick sale, so like from initial conception to the book going into like edits with an editor was pretty fast. So it was a lot of like trying really I never feel good about myself as an author if I know I have like this internal gauge of like, okay, I'm happy with this. And like it took me a while to get to that gauge because for a while you could kind of be like, oh, this is fine. I'll figure it out, and then you send it off to your editor, you get more edits, you're like, okay, this is still fine. But like getting to the point where you're like, oh, I love this and I'm happy. And I think readers will like this. And it feels true to the characters. It took me so long to
To
get to
get
that point.
there.
But I feel like I'm finally there, which is a really nice feeling. But it was just, it's hard. And I think it's hard to get invested like with characters for a sequel, because I don't know if there's going to be a third book. Like I would love there to be, or there will be a fourth book. I just don't know. And it really depends on like how the first book does and maybe how the second book does. So it's really hard, like not getting too invested to where I'm seeing all the rest of their stories play out and all these other ideas I have for them because I don't want my heart broken and like have that not happen. But like I have to also think as if they're going to have more life because like whether or not their stories are written, they still continue to exist. Like their stories don't just end. So it's like that balance of being like, you exist inside my head, you might not continue to exist, like making sure they feel fully fleshed out and realized and have these stories that go beyond the page, whether or not I get to write them is
Well, I will say it's almost really impossible for me to believe that this isn't going to be optioned, right? This has the film written all over it. I mean, it's so magnificent a story. I mean, you can
yeah.
just see the three actresses playing these sisters and the
Yeah.
justice that can be done to the story, which I hope will be justice. A lot of times I see the movie after the book and I'm
You're just like,
disappointed. I'm
I know. It's
disappointed.
hard.
All right.
Expectation is difficult.
But I mean, literally, it had that screen, that feel to
Yeah.
it, that so I can see this, and I think it's going to be monstrously popular,
Thank
right?
you.
These
I really
sisters are.
hope so. I have so much fun with it. And my YA books, they did fine. They didn't do very well. And I debuted during the pandemic, which sucked. Just very bad timing. So it's been like really, really nice to see reader response and see, the book so far be doing pretty well. And just, getting that momentum. It feels really good because like I write to entertain. I want people to be entertained and to have fun. And getting to see that is like very satisfying for me as an author.
Oh, it is. I mean, and it was. I mean, it was a fun read. Like I said, it's suspenseful in the right places. There's a mystery, that's going on the whole time. We're trying to say this is more. I mean, immediately, even after. I mean, I don't want to give any spoilers, but shall I say the dead body immediately
Yeah, I
after
think
the
I
dead.
think that I'm trying to think of like the jacket copy. I'm like, how detailed? I'm pretty sure we kind of know someone dies. So like, someone dies, there's a body.
Right. I said there's got to be more to it than this, right? Like I think there's more to it here. There's more to the story. Something feels really missing.
Hmm.
Um, and then of course, that's accurate. But I really did think that like it lays out like right away there's going to be more to the story, and there truly is, and there's a
Yeah.
lot more to the story. And
Hmm.
like you have this driving suspenseful plot playing literally simultaneous to
Yeah.
these women getting out years worth of you suck, right?
Yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
just a lot of like you suck, you've always sucked, you did
Yeah.
this to me
You're
in
the
the third
worst.
grade, and
Like,
I right.
yeah.
And I've hated you ever since. Like they're getting all that out into the
Mhm.
open
Yeah.
while this really suspenseful mystery is
Mhm.
playing out.
Yeah. It's a
And so
fun
I
dynamic.
right. So I mean, I just wow, like that's some fun stuff right
It
there.
is. Yeah, it's fun. Like I have like so many people have asked me this. I have two older sisters, not super similar dynamics, but it's definitely like taken from being like the youngest. I'm not like Remy, or I'd say like Remy's like a really bad version of me that needs like so much more therapy and like hugs. But like, like I have two older sisters and just like I was having this conversation with my therapist, I think like a week or two ago, where we were talking about older siblings because my husband, he has two older brothers that are almost the exact same age gaps between me and my sisters. And so we were both like bullied, belittled, tortured. And I was talking to her about this, and she has an older brother, and she's like, I feel like if you're of the same gender, like it's worse. Like there's more, like she's like, my older brother was great. Like she's like, I've talked to other people, like, if it's a different gender, it's generally speaking, like they might get along more. It's more like of a protectiveness because my sisters just tormented me like my entire childhood, like relentlessly. So like the whole opening bit about how your sisters almost killed you was based off of how my sisters once like tied me to a chair because they said they were going to put makeup on me. But and they claim to this day that I asked for this, which does not track because they tied me up and shoved like a scrunchie in my mouth. And apparently to keep me from screaming, and that the babysitter could hear me screaming from downstairs. And my mom, when she found out, freaked out because I have asthma. And she's like, you could have killed your sister, her little asthmatic lungs. Like my sisters loved, they were like, oh, you wanted us to do that. And I'm like, then why was I tied up?
Yeah.
Come on now. No, my sisters, they're hilarious. I love them. But I was just, my sisters are 13 months apart in real life, so they were very close. And then I was so much younger. So it creates a really interesting dynamic where you are
Right,
not
which is what you do for the book, right? Because the old two older sisters are
we're
closer
much
in
closer.
age,
Yeah. And that's, I
right?
think, how you feel a little bit like on the outside because you don't have that person because it's not, you want that same dynamic where you're almost like friends or confidants, but you're so much younger that they just don't view you that way. And sometimes that can carry over into adulthood when you are so, that age gap is so less important or it should be less important. And sometimes it still like lingers and you're just like, hey, I'm an adult too now. Like, let me in
Right.
on like the cool club. I want to be close to you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I guess I'm saying. I like that. I like literary fiction because I think it captures the human dynamic better
Yeah.
than most books
Mhm.
do. Right. So it's great to be involved in a mystery and try to figure things out. And, that's but nothing captures humanity better
Yeah.
than literary fiction, right? Where you get to these stories with people who live messy lives. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, don't we all?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, life is messy. Relationships are messy. And when I see that reflected back at me on paper, it resonates for me.
Yeah.
And so I'm always excited. I'm excited when I go and I talk to authors that are, starting off writing literary fiction. I started your book though thinking I was reading just a suspense sort of
Mhm.
mystery.
Yeah.
So I was monstrously pleased, to really
Yeah.
start getting into it. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes. The messiness.
messy, messy, messy.
That's the fun part.
Well, I mean, and I'm excited to hear that there's a sequel coming out
Yeah.
for this. What's the time frame, you think?
So I'm thinking, I believe it comes out in October. Um,
I
I
mean,
don't
to
know.
actually be out in October, like
Yeah.
released?
Yeah. It's been very fast. That's,
Wow.
yeah, no, I wrote it last year and then was doing edits over the holidays. So I hunkered down instead of going anywhere for the holidays and just revised in my house. And yeah, so I believe unless, there's some, things we need to go back and like fiddle with, it should be going off to copy edits here pretty soon. And so that means like the bulk of all like the plot work is done. Like I have to go back through and do like past pages and really fine tune everything. But in terms of like the plot and all the story arcs, like I think that's pretty much solidified now. So now it's just fine tuning it. I love covers. I love getting to see a cover. So I'm so excited for that. Probably in the next couple months. So yeah, it's fun. I want to put them now. I've put my wish list of like what I want the cover to look like. I want it to be similar to the first one, different like color scheme. I have a couple of ideas, but I'm so excited to see that because I don't know if you have the hard copy. If
I
you've taken,
didn't have the hard copy. I had the PDF.
let me see if this is actually, I have like books everywhere. It's messy. But I don't know if the second book will get this treatment, but this was such a fun surprise where they put this on the hard copy, like underneath the jacket. I know it's neat to do on like the podcast that you can't see what I'm doing, but they did some, special like cover art where it shows like a mountain range and like a little tent and a dead body outline on the book underneath the cover.
Well,
And
the video will be up on YouTube. So for the
oh,
people
okay.
watching on video, they will get to see that
So
cover.
cool. Yeah, perfect. I think it's on my Instagram too. I've taken like like a long Instagram break, which has been fantastic. But I'm like, I think I posted a photo at one point of the book without its jacket on. But yeah, I was very pleased with how they presented the book. It felt like it really matched the tone. So yeah, or I
I
guess yeah,
have to ask,
October.
did you have a favorite sister?
I mean, I feel like I'm partial to Remy just because she's in a small, loose way based off me as like the youngest. But I love Maeve. I love writing Maeve. Maeve is so funny. Like Maeve gets more in book two, and then if there's a book three, it's gonna be Maeve's book. And I have all these ideas, and I'm so excited. But I love like comedic relief or someone who's just so perfectly in their own world that they
Yeah.
can like other characters can play off them. So like I love Maeve. She's a bit of like two of my sisters combined a little bit in terms of her personality. So she's fun, but I like all of them. Like Eliana she's a strong personality and is a good foil for Remy. And I think they all play off each other well and would be so much weaker without the other. But yeah, I'd say like personally connected to Remy, I love writing Maeve and thinking of like the silliness that she can say in certain scenes and her quirkiness.
Yeah, these were great characters. I thought you did a really nice job. So tell tell my read listeners, viewers, how they can learn more about you.
Yeah, like I said, I am on an extended Instagram break, but I do have an Instagram, if that's what you mean. Of yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah,
how can they
yeah.
find out more
Yeah,
about you,
so
connect with you?
yeah, well, I have a website, which is my full name, Amelia Diane Combs, .com. And then I have an Instagram, which is sincerely underscore Amelia. And there's my Instagram is like book photos and then like a lot of cat photos because I have a very sweet old cat. She
Which
sometimes is
ironically,
like,
you put a dog in the book.
I know, but so God, this kills me. So when I was writing, I wanted Remy to have a pet 'cause I love animals and I thought it'd be like a fun addition. But I was like, no one's going to bring the cat camping. Then this past summer, because my family goes camping every year, that's what I based the book like off of. I was going camping with my family and I flew into Reno and I wasn't with my husband. He was staying with our cat. And I was sitting at the table at the campground and there's this guy that pulled up in like a Sprinter van in the lot across from us. And I'm just watching him and this cat jumps out of the Sprinter van and just starts walking around the campsite. And like, I lost my mind. I was like, oh my God, this guy brought his cat camping. Like, and I ended up talking to him that he'd trained this cat for years and he would just let it roam around the campsite and then would call it back. And if he would hide in the bushes, he'd take a broom and go like hit the bushes and get the cat to come back out. Like, I have never seen anything like this before in my life. And I was like, if I'd only known that this was a reality, I could have added a camping cat to my book. Because like this guy, he trained the cat for years. We were talking to him about it, about like, making sure the cat didn't stray and that it would listen when he called. And it was like really hard because, cats are more stubborn than dogs.
Yeah.
But like he did it. And it was like my favorite thing that I've ever seen. Like I was so excited because like I love all animals. I love cats, I love dogs, but the novelty of this camping cat just killed me. I was like, this is amazing.
Well, I thought it was kind of cool that you had the dog in the book
Yeah.
too.
I love animals. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was okay with that.
Yeah.
Being the
I know.
dog. I like the dog. I thought the dog added a little something.
Yeah, adds a little something.
Yeah.
It's also nice to show that like Remy can take care of something. She can't really take care of herself, which was my agent's comment when she first read the book. She's like, okay, she can take care of her dog, doing a good job, but can't take care of herself. And I was like, that is accurate. Yes.
Right. And like the thought process, there's one point in the book, and like again, I'm not going to say anything too
Yeah,
detailed,
yeah.
but I mean, there's one point in the book where like it's a train wreck is what's
Mhm.
happening, and she's literally like, and I'm trying to be calm for the dog, like where she's
She's trying
trying,
to like not freak the dog out. And it's so true.
like,
They know
right,
they
like,
can read your emotions. But yeah, um,
and she's like talking to the dog, like it's
yeah,
gonna be all right.
it's okay. Like I do that to my cat. Sometimes Sophie sits behind me on her little couch, but it is way too cold in here for her old lady bones. She's like almost 16, so she's in the warmer part of the house. But I do love doing interviews when she's in the back because it's so cute. So I can show her off on her little kitty couch, but not too much.
Well, we're gonna put the link up for your website
Yeah,
so that
there's some
people
fun
can check you out.
Sophie photos around.
And I'm gonna say, I hope that when the sequel comes out, that you will come back and talk to me about
Yeah,
it.
for sure. That'd be great. This has been so much fun.
Now I'm gonna be actively looking for it because I can't wait now that I know that these girls live on.
They live on. They live to create more messes, make more bad
Um,
decisions.
oh, I'm there for it. I'm completely there for this.
No, I would love to come back.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Thank you.
being here.
Of course. Thank
Uh,
you so much.
I loved your book and go out and if you haven't seen it, bought it yet, this is well worth your time. I mean, this is a really good read. So I highly recommend it. The links will be up. I want to thank Amelia for joining me today and say she'll be back.
Yeah, I'll be back. Thanks so
Bye.
much. Bye.